You walk into your kitchen because you're hungry. And what do you see? Maybe bread on the counter, butter in the fridge, and a knife in the drawer. You see everything that you need to make a sandwich. But here's what you don't see. You don't necessarily see the design of the cabinets or the pattern on the floor tiles. And you completely ignore the decorative bowl that it was put on the shelf last week. Why? Because you're not actually seeing your kitchen. You're seeing a food production facility. Your hunger has transformed your entire perception of the room, and this happens constantly, and you never notice. Like right now, you're not seeing a room full of objects. You might see a learning environment. The chair or the bed that you're sitting in exists for you as a tool for staying comfortable while you focus. The door exists as a potential escape route if something goes wrong. The clock exists as a reminder of how much time you have left. We think we see the world as it is, and then apply our interpretations to it. We think that perception comes first, then meaning. But that's actually backwards. You never see the world as it is. You can't. What you see is always already organized by what you're trying to do, because that's how human perception works. At any given moment, you're aiming at something. That aim structures everything you see. The world doesn't present itself to you as a collection of neutral facts that you then evaluate, but instead it presents itself as a pathway forward, as tools you can use, and obstacles that might be in your way. Everything else is essentially invisible. I mean, think about the last time you were looking for your keys. What happened to your perception? You started seeing potential key locations everywhere. The counter became a place that keys might be. The couch cushions became places to search. And even your jacket pocket became relevant. But you completely stopped noticing anything that couldn't help you find your keys. Your goal restructured your entire perceptual field. You didn't consciously decide to ignore the color of the walls or the books on the shelf. They simply ceased to exist for you because they weren't relevant to what you were trying to do. And this is happening all the time. You're always operating within what we would call a frame of reference. That frame has a starting point, which is where you are now, and it has a goal, which is where you want to be. Everything in between gets organized according to whether it helps you get there or whether it gets in your way. And your emotions are part of the system. They're not random feelings that wash over you for no reason. They are signals about your progress toward your goal. When you see something that will help you move forward, you feel a positive emotion. But when you encounter an obstacle, you feel a negative emotion. That's why the same object can produce completely different responses depending on your frame of view. If you're hungry and trying to make a sandwich, you're happy to see a butter knife and the ingredients to do so. But if you're trying to have a serious conversation with your kids or your partner and they're playing with the butter knife, you might be annoyed. Same object, just a different frame of reference and a different emotion. The positive emotion that actually drives you forward isn't the satisfaction of achieving a goal, because that's a different kind of positive emotion. When you finally eat the sandwich, you feel satisfied, but that satisfaction actually ends the frame, because the purpose disappears when the hunger is gone. The positive emotion that makes life worth living is the emotion you feel while moving towards a goal. Hope, enthusiasm, interest, curiosity. These emotions emerge when you can see yourself making progress. They require a goal that you haven't achieved yet and a path you can actually walk down. And this has some serious implications. It means that you need goals to feel a positive emotion. If you don't have something that you're aiming at, the world cannot organize itself as pathways and tools. Everything is just an obstacle or an irrelevancy to you. You need somewhere to go. But the goal also has to be achievable. If your goal is so impossibly distant that you can't take any steps towards it, then every step you try to take just reveals another obstacle. The world lays itself out as a series of things blocking your way, and that produces nothing but negative emotions. And this is what happens when people try to set goals that are too ambitious. They want to write the great American novel, but they can't write a coherent paragraph. They might want to be a professional athlete, but can't run a mile. The gap between where they are and where they want to be is so vast that they cannot see any path forward, and so they give up. The solution is to set goals that you can actually move towards, not goals that you can achieve instantly, because that kind of defeats the purpose of producing the positive emotion, but goals where you can take real steps and see yourself getting closer. And that's what produces hope and enthusiasm. This is also why breaking down big goals into smaller steps works. If your goal is to clean your entire house, and your house is a disaster, then that goal for one day might be too big. Because you look around and you see that there are only obstacles. Dirty dishes, cluttered closets, unmade beds, and trash everywhere. It can be really overwhelming. But if your goal is to clean one corner of the room at a time, then you can now see a pathway and you can take the steps towards the progress. And as you make progress, you feel the positive emotion that comes from moving forward. And then you can set the next small goal. Your motivational systems work this way automatically. When you're hungry, hunger doesn't just make you feel bad. It restructures your perception so that the world organizes itself around the problem of finding food. Food becomes the goal, and everything else reorganizes itself in relation to that goal. Think about what happens when you're tired. Your perception shifts. Suddenly, the couch looks really appealing, and the bed becomes the most important object in your environment. Tasks that seemed manageable 5 minutes ago are now obstacles because your goals have shifted, and so has your perception. You have multiple motivational systems running at one time: hunger, thirst, temperature regulation, social connection, curiosity. Each one is trying to structure your perception around its own goals. And part of maturing is learning to integrate these systems so they don't conflict constantly. A 2-year-old is just a bundle of these motivational states. They cycle through them with complete intensity. They're hungry, so they scream. They're tired, so they collapse. They're angry, so they throw a tantrum. There's no integration, no ability to satisfy one need and postpone another. But as you mature, you learn to organize these competing motivations into a coherent pattern. You learn that you can't eat every single time you're slightly hungry, and that you can't sleep every time you yawn. You learn to satisfy your needs in ways that also allow you to maintain relationships and pursue longer-term goals. And this integration is what we call developing a personality. You're not just controlling your impulses, but building a more sophisticated way of being in the world. And this allows you to set multiple goals and be satisfied simultaneously over time. But the fundamental structure remains the same. You're always operating within a frame. and you're always aiming at something. Now, that aim always structures what you see and how you feel about it. But most of us don't think about this. We just assume that we're seeing the world as it is, but we're not. We're seeing the world through a lens of what we are trying to do. Change what we're trying to do, and the world changes, which is why having clear goals matters so much. If you don't know what you're aiming at, your perception has nothing to organize itself around. You drift through the world, seeing obstacles and irrelevant noise, feeling negative emotions or numbness. If you have clear goals, you can actually move forward and start to see opportunities and pathways. You start feeling the positive emotion that comes from making progress. Because you never actually see the world anyway, but just how it relates to where you're trying to go. And once you understand that, you can use it to your advantage. So, with that said, thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see y'all next time.